On the night she stumbled into the Alpha King's private chambers, she froze. He stood there, emerging from the bath, water dripping down skin scarred by battles she couldn't imagine. Their eyes locked, and for 3 heartbeats, neither moved. She should have run, should have looked away, but she couldn't. And when he finally spoke, his voice was rougher than she expected. "Who are you?" She had been running from a fiancé who betrayed her with her own friend, from a family that saw her as currency. Lost in the corridors of Thornhill Manor, desperate for air, she'd pushed open a door she thought was empty. Instead, she found him. The king no one dared approach. The wolf everyone feared. He should have punished her. Instead, he asked her name. And when she whispered it, something flickered in his dark eyes. Recognition. Confusion. Hunger. By morning, she expected consequences. What she got was an offer that made no sense, but there was something he wasn't telling her. Something about the wolf inside him. Something about why he'd spent years pushing everyone away, until the night she found him barely holding on to his humanity. And her touch was the only thing that brought him back. Now she wears his mark. But the real question is whether 2 people this broken can actually save each other, or if they'll destroy each other trying. Chapter 1. The Breaking. Mabel Ashford had learned early that love was not a birthright. It was a privilege reserved for girls born into families who could afford sentiment. She stood in the dim corridor outside the drawing room, her hand frozen on the brass doorknob. Inside, laughter spilled out light, careless, intimate. The kind that only existed between 2 people who believed themselves alone. Dominic's voice first, low and smooth. Then Vivian's reply. Soft, teasing, familiar. Mabel didn't push the door open. She didn't need to. Some truths announced themselves without confirmation. Her hand fell away from the knob. She should have felt rage. Instead, there was only a strange hollowness spreading through her chest like winter fog. Behind her, footsteps approached. Her mother, Marilyn Ashford, appeared at the end of the hallway, already dressed for the evening gathering. Her emerald gown whispered against the floor. "There you are." Marilyn's gaze swept over her daughter with the efficiency of someone checking livestock. "You're not even dressed. The carriages leave in an hour." Mabel turned slowly. "Were you planning to tell me?" Marilyn's expression didn't flicker. "Tell you what?" "About Dominic." And Vivian. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then Marilyn sighed, the sound carrying more annoyance than sympathy. "What did you expect, Mabel? Romance? Dominic Kingswell is forming an alliance with our family, not courting a love story. What he does in his private time is irrelevant." The words landed like stones. "Irrelevant," Mabel repeated quietly. "Yes." Marilyn stepped closer, her voice dropping to something almost gentle. "Almost. You were raised to understand your position. This marriage secures our standing. It protects your brother's futures. It gives you status, protection, a household of your own. That is more than most women ever receive." Mabel looked at her mother, really looked at her. At the perfectly arranged hair, the practiced expression, the way she held herself like armor. "Did you ever want something different?" Mabel asked. Marilyn's jaw tightened. "Wanting is a luxury. Now go dress. We cannot afford to appear weak tonight." She swept past, leaving Mabel alone in the hallway. Through the door, Vivian's laughter rose again. Something inside Mabel cracked. The royal gathering at Thornhill Manor was everything Mabel had been trained to endure. Chandeliers dripped crystal light across marble floors. Aristocrats moved through the halls like schools of brilliantly colored fish, their conversations layered with hidden meanings. Mabel stood near the refreshment table, her pale blue gown feeling like a costume. Across the room, Dominic spoke with a cluster of older men, his posture relaxed, confident. He hadn't looked at her once since they arrived. Vivian stood near the windows, radiant in rose silk. She caught Mabel's eye and smiled the same smile she'd worn 100 times before, as if nothing had changed. Perhaps nothing had. Perhaps Mabel was the only one who didn't understand the rules. "You look lovely tonight, Miss Ashford." Mabel turned. Sebastian Caldwell stood beside her, holding 2 glasses of champagne. He offered one with an easy smile. "Thank you," she managed. though you also look like you'd rather be anywhere else." A surprised laugh escaped her. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who feels the same way." Sebastian glanced around the room. "These gatherings are performances, everyone playing their part. And what part are you playing?" "The charming second son with no inheritance and excellent conversation skills." He raised his glass in a mock toast. "And you?" "The obedient daughter." Something shifted in Sebastian's expression. Not pity, understanding. "That sounds exhausting." It was such a simple observation, but something about the kindness in his voice made Mabel's throat tighten. "Excuse me," she whispered, setting down her untouched champagne. "I need air." She moved through the crowd before he could respond, before the tears building behind her eyes could escape. The main hall was too crowded, too bright. She turned down a side corridor, then another, seeking silence and shadows. The manor sprawled in ways she hadn't anticipated. Hallways branched into hallways. Doors stood closed and identical. She was lost within minutes, but she didn't care. Lost was better than found. Finally, she stopped before a door at the end of a particularly quiet corridor. No light showed beneath it. No sound came from within. Perfect. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was warm, uncommonly warm, and filled with steam that clung to her skin like silk. Mabel froze. This was not an empty room. This was a bathing chamber. Private, clearly occupied recently. Candles burned in wall sconces. The scent of cedar and something darker hung in the air. A large copper tub sat in the center, water still steaming. She should leave. Immediately. But her feet wouldn't move, because she heard it then. Water, dripping, movement from the adjoining room, and then he stepped through the doorway. Completely bare, water sliding down skin, dark hair pushed back from a face carved from something harder than marble. He saw her the same moment she saw him. Both of them froze. Mabel's breath caught. She should look away, should run, should do anything except stand there staring. But she couldn't move. He was taller than any man she'd ever seen, broader. His body was nothing like the soft nobleman she'd been promised to. This was something else entirely. Muscle and scars and raw, undeniable presence. But it was his eyes that trapped her. Dark. Unnaturally dark. And fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin burn. For 3 heartbeats, neither of them moved. Then something flickered across his face. Not anger. Something closer to recognition. Confusion. His hand twitched at his side. "Who are you?" His voice was low, rough, the kind of sound that vibrated in the chest. Mabel's mouth opened. No sound came out. "I asked you a question." She took a step back. Her heel caught on her gown. She stumbled, catching herself against the doorframe. I didn't know." The words tumbled out. "I got lost. I didn't mean to." "What's your name?" "Mabel." It came out as barely more than a whisper. "Mabel Ashford." His eyes narrowed slightly, as if the name meant something, or should have. "Ashford," he repeated slowly. She couldn't breathe properly. The room was too warm, too small. He was too close, even though he hadn't moved. "I'm sorry," she managed. "I'll go." She turned. "Stop." The command in his voice was absolute. Mabel stopped, her hand on the doorframe, her body halfway into the hall. "Look at me." She shouldn't. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But something deeper, something she didn't understand, made her turn back. He still hadn't moved, hadn't covered himself, just stood there, water dripping onto the stone floor, watching her with an expression she couldn't name. "Do you know who I am?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. A strange sound escaped him. Not quite a laugh. Not quite anything recognizable. "You should." Then he moved. Not toward her, toward a robe draped over a nearby chair. He pulled it on with economical movements, tying it closed without looking away from her. Atticus Blackwell. The name hit her like cold water. The Alpha King. Mabel's knees weakened. She'd walked into the Alpha King's private chamber. Seen him. Stared at him. "I didn't know," she breathed. "I swear I didn't." "I believe you." His voice was calmer now, but no less intense. "If you'd known, You wouldn't have stayed. She couldn't argue with that. He moved closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. Each step measured. Why did you stay? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Something flickered in his eyes again, that same strange recognition. He stopped just out of arm's reach, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, close enough to see the water still caught in his hair. You should go, he said quietly. Before someone realizes you're here. She should. She knew she should, but her feet remained planted. What will you do? She whispered. Will you have me punished? His expression darkened. Is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think. I don't know you. No. His voice dropped even lower. You don't. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Go, he said again. But this time it sounded less like an order and more like a warning. Mabel finally moved. She backed into the hallway, her eyes locked on his until the very last second. Then she turned and ran. Chapter 2. The Summoning. Mabel didn't sleep that night. She lay in the guest room Thornhill Manor had provided, staring at the ceiling while her heart continued its frantic rhythm. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him. The way he'd looked at her, the way his voice had wrapped around her name. Atticus Blackwell, the Alpha King who ruled the Northern Territories with absolute authority. The man whispered about in drawing rooms and feared in council chambers. The king who had never taken a wife, never shown interest in any woman, never allowed anyone close. And she'd seen him. All of him. Heat flooded her face even in the darkness. What had she been thinking? Staying in that room. She should have fled the moment she realized her mistake. Instead, she'd stood there like a fool, unable to look away. The way he'd looked at her in return still made her skin feel too tight. Morning came too quickly. Mabel dressed in silence while her lady's maid, Eliza, chattered about the previous night's gathering. They say the Alpha King attended, Eliza said, pinning Mabel's hair. Though no one saw him, he always arrives late and leaves early. Never stays for the dancing. Mabel's hands tightened in her lap. Did you enjoy yourself, miss? It was fine. Just fine? I heard Dominic Kingswell barely left the card room all evening. Men and their gambling. Eliza's tone carried disapproval. You'd think he'd pay more attention to his intended. Mabel said nothing. A knock at the door interrupted them. Eliza opened it to reveal a servant in royal livery, deep blue and silver, the Alpha King's colors. Mabel's stomach dropped. Miss Ashford? The servant's voice was formal, neutral. Your presence is requested in the east drawing room. Immediately. Eliza's eyes went wide. Mabel forced herself to stand on legs that felt unsteady. Of course. The walk through Thornhill Manor's corridors felt endless. Other guests passed them, whispering behind fans and gloved hands. News traveled fast in these circles. Everyone would know by noon that Mabel Ashford had been summoned by someone important. The servant stopped before an ornate door and knocked once. Enter, came a female voice from within. Not Atticus. The servant opened the door and stepped aside. Mabel entered a beautifully appointed drawing room. Tall windows overlooked the gardens. A woman stood near them, backlit by morning sun. She turned. Evangeline Blackwell, the Alpha King's sister. She was striking rather than beautiful. Sharp cheekbones, intelligent eyes, dark hair pulled back severely. Her gown was deep burgundy, perfectly tailored. Miss Ashford. Evangeline's voice was cool, assessing. Please, sit. Mabel sank into the indicated chair. Evangeline remained standing, studying her with the same intensity her brother had shown. Do you know why you're here? No, my lady. Don't lie. You're clever enough to guess. Mabel's throat tightened. Last night, I entered a room I shouldn't have. Yes, my brother's private chamber. Evangeline moved to a side table and poured tea with precise movements. Quite the accident. It was an accident. I believe you. Evangeline handed her a cup. If you'd known who he was, you would have run screaming. Most do. Mabel accepted the tea but didn't drink. What happens now? That depends. Evangeline sat across from her, arranging her skirts. Tell me about yourself, Miss Ashford. Your family, your circumstances. I don't understand. Who more me? Mabel set down the teacup. My family holds a minor title. We have lands but little wealth. I'm the eldest daughter. I was engaged to Dominic Kingswell to secure an alliance. Was? The word slipped out. Mabel looked down at her hands. I discovered yesterday that my feelings on the matter are irrelevant. The engagement will proceed regardless of personal complications, such as your intended bedding your friend? Mabel's head snapped up. Evangeline's expression hadn't changed. You think royal households don't have eyes? We know everything that happens at these gatherings, Miss Ashford. Every indiscretion, every whispered secret. Your situation is not unique. Then why am I here? Because my brother asked for you. The room tilted slightly. What? Last night, after you left, he summoned me, told me what happened, and then he did something he has never done before. Evangeline leaned forward slightly. He asked about you, who you were, why you were here, whether you were spoken for. Mabel couldn't breathe properly. I don't understand. Neither do I. Atticus doesn't ask about women, ever. He spent years building walls around himself, around his wolf, controlling every interaction, every connection. Evangeline's gaze sharpened. And then you stumble into his bathing chamber, and suddenly he's asking questions. I didn't mean to. I know. That's what makes it interesting. Evangeline stood, moving to the window. My brother is not a simple man, Miss Ashford. He carries burdens you cannot imagine. His wolf is unstable, growing stronger, more difficult to control. It's why he refuses to marry, why he keeps everyone at a distance. Why are you telling me this? Evangeline turned back. Because he's invited you to stay at the royal estate. The words hung in the air like smoke. What? As his guest, under his protection, for as long as you wish. Evangeline's expression was unreadable. He's offered to dissolve your engagement to Dominic Kingswell, to compensate your family for any losses, to provide you with your own income, your own household if you desire it. Mabel stood on shaking legs. That's impossible. Is it? You're currently engaged to a man who betrayed you, trapped in a family that sees you as currency. The Alpha King is offering you freedom, Miss Ashford. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. Why would he do this? He doesn't know me. No, but his wolf does. The words sent ice down Mabel's spine. What does that mean? Evangeline was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. There are things about my brother I cannot explain, things he doesn't fully understand himself, but I've never seen him react to anyone the way he reacted to you. His wolf recognized something. Recognized what? I don't know, but I know my brother, and I know he wouldn't make this offer lightly. He's giving you a choice. Stay in your current life, or take a chance on something different. Mabel's mind spun. This was madness. She'd known him for all of 5 minutes, seen him in a compromising position, and fled like a thief. And now he was offering her freedom? What would be expected of me? She asked quietly. Honesty, discretion, and your presence when he requests it. Nothing else? Evangeline's lips curved slightly. What are you asking, Miss Ashford? Heat flooded Mabel's face. I need to know what this offer entails. He wants your company. Nothing more. If something develops between you. Evangeline shrugged. That would be your choice. Both of your choices. But he's not purchasing a mistress. He's offering protection to someone who needs it. Why? Ask him yourself. Before Mabel could respond, another knock sounded. The same servant appeared. The king will see Miss Ashford now. Mabel's heart stopped. Evangeline smiled. Good luck. The room they led her to was smaller than she expected. A private study, lined with books, dominated by a massive desk near windows overlooking the forest. Atticus stood with his back to her, looking out at the trees. He wore black today. Simple, well-tailored, unremarkable except for the way it emphasized his size. The servant withdrew, closing the door with a soft click. They were alone. Miss Ashford. He didn't turn. Thank you for coming. I was told I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. He turned then, and Mabel's breath caught. In daylight, he was even more imposing. But it wasn't his size that arrested her. It was his eyes, dark and searching and focused entirely on her. My sister explained my offer? Yes. And? Mabel lifted her chin. I need to understand why. Why what? Why you're doing this. We're strangers. You owe me nothing. Atticus moved closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. Do you want me to be honest? Yes. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I don't fully understand it myself, he said quietly. I saw you last night, and something in me recognized you. My wolf has been unsettled ever since. Pacing, searching, wanting. The admission sent heat through her. Wanting what? His jaw tightened. You. The single word carried weight beyond its simplicity. You don't know me, Mabel whispered. No, but I want to. This is insane. Yes. His voice dropped lower. It is. I've spent years avoiding exactly this kind of complication. Years building control. And then you walked into that room, and everything I've carefully constructed feels suddenly irrelevant. Mabel's hands trembled. She clasped them together. I don't understand what you're asking for. Time. Your presence. A chance to understand what this is. And my engagement? Ended. If you agree. Just like that? I am the Alpha King. If I say it's ended, it's ended. The arrogance should have offended her. Instead, it sent a strange thrill through her chest. And if I say no? She asked. If I choose to return to my family? To Dominic? Something dark flashed in his eyes. Then I will ensure you're treated well, that he honors his commitments. But I won't force you to stay. You could. I could do many things. His voice roughened. That doesn't mean I will. Mabel studied him, searching for deception, for hidden motives. But all she saw was intensity. Raw. Honest. Dangerous. If I agree, she said slowly, I need rules. Boundaries. Name them. My own rooms. My own space. Privacy when I request it. Done. And I'm free to leave if I choose. His expression darkened slightly, but he nodded. Yes, then I accept. The words left her mouth before she could second-guess them. Atticus went very still. You're certain? No, she wasn't certain of anything. But she thought of Dominic's laughter, Vivian's smile, her mother's cold dismissal. She thought of the life waiting for her if she returned, and she thought of how she'd felt, standing in that bathing chamber, meeting this man's eyes. Terrified, but alive. Yes, she said. I'm certain. Atticus released a breath. Something in his posture shifted. Not quite relief, but close. Then welcome, Mabel Ashford, to Castle Blackwell. Chapter 3. The Curse. The royal estate was nothing like Thornhill Manor. Where the gathering place had been ornate and showy, Castle Blackwell was built for function and defense. High stone walls, narrow windows, architecture designed to withstand siege. But inside, it surprised her. The rooms were spacious, well lit, filled with unexpected warmth. Rich tapestries lined the walls. Fireplaces burned in every chamber. The staff moved with quiet efficiency, their eyes downcast but not afraid. Evangeline showed her to her rooms personally. South wing, she explained, pushing open double doors. Far enough from Atticus to give you privacy, close enough that he'll know you're near. The suite was beautiful. A large bedroom with a 4-poster bed, sitting room, private bathing chamber, and a small balcony overlooking the gardens. It's too much, Mabel breathed. It's the smallest guest suite we have. Evangeline moved to the wardrobe and opened it. Your things from Thornhill were brought. I've also taken the liberty of ordering additional items. You'll need appropriate clothing for castle life. Mabel ran her hand over the bedpost. Solid oak, carved with intricate patterns. What happens now? Now you settle in. Rest. Tomorrow your real education begins. Education? Evangeline's smile was sharp. You're living in the Alpha King's household. You'll need to understand our customs, our hierarchy, how things work here. And, she paused, you'll need to understand Atticus. Your brother doesn't strike me as someone who welcomes understanding. No, but you're already closer than most get." Evangeline moved toward the door, then stopped. "A word of advice, Miss Ashford. My brother is not cruel, but he is complicated, damaged in ways that make connection difficult. If you're here hoping for a fairy tale romance, you'll be disappointed. I'm not hoping for anything. Good. Manage your expectations, and you might survive this intact." She opened the door. "Dinner is at 8. Someone will fetch you." Then she was gone. Mabel stood alone in the beautiful room, wondering what she'd agreed to. Dinner was a formal affair. 20 people seated at a long table in a dining hall that could have accommodated 5 times that number. Atticus sat at the head, Evangeline to his right. Mabel had been placed several seats down, between a quiet older man who introduced himself as Julian Prescott, the king's advisor, and a younger woman named Rosalie Whitaker, who seemed friendly enough. "How are you finding the castle?" Rosalie asked, her voice pitched low beneath the general conversation. "Overwhelming," Mabel admitted. "It is at first, but you'll adjust. We all did. Do you live here?" "My father is the head of the guard. I grew up in these halls." Rosalie glanced toward the head of the table. "Though I'll admit, having someone new join the household is unusual. Atticus typically keeps his distance from court life." Mabel followed her gaze. Atticus was listening to something Julian said, his expression neutral. But even from a distance, she could feel the weight of his presence. As if sensing her attention, his eyes flicked toward her, their gazes locked. Heat flooded her cheeks. She looked down at her plate quickly. When she glanced back up, he was still watching. The meal continued. Conversation flowed around her. But Mabel barely tasted the food. She was too aware of those dark eyes returning to her again and again. Finally, mercifully, dinner ended. Mabel started to stand with the others, but Evangeline appeared at her elbow. "The king requests your presence in the music room." Mabel's pulse jumped. "Now?" "Yes." She followed Evangeline through corridors lit with candlelight. They stopped before a door at the end of a quiet hallway. "He'll be along shortly." Evangeline pushed the door open. "Don't run this time." Then she left. Mabel stepped inside. The room took her breath away. A grand piano dominated the center. Shelves lined with music books covered one wall. Instruments she couldn't name rested in careful arrangement, but it was the windows that captured her. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the forest, now dark and mysterious under moonlight. She moved toward the piano without thinking. Her fingers brushed the keys. A soft note rang out. "Do you play?" She spun. Atticus stood in the doorway, still in his formal dinner clothes but with his jacket removed. His sleeves were rolled to his elbows. "A little," she managed. "My mother insisted on lessons." "Play something." It wasn't quite in order, but close. Mabel sat on the bench, her hands trembling slightly. She hadn't played in months. Not since her engagement had been announced, and her time became filled with wedding preparations. Her fingers found a simple melody, something from childhood. The notes came haltingly at first, then with more confidence. She didn't notice Atticus moving closer until he was standing beside the piano, watching her hands, his expression unreadable. The song ended. Silence fell. "Again," he said softly. "That's the only one I remember properly." "Then play it again." So she did. And as her fingers moved across the keys, she watched him from the corner of her eye. His shoulders had lowered slightly. Some of the tension had left his jaw. His eyes had closed. She finished. His eyes opened. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "It's just a simple piece. Not the piece. You." He moved around the piano until he stood directly in front of her. "When you play, something in me quiets." Mabel stood, suddenly aware of how close they were. "I don't understand. My wolf. It's been restless for years, growing stronger, harder to control. But when you play..." He stopped, his jaw working. "It settles. How is that possible?" "I don't know." His hand lifted, then dropped, as if he'd stopped himself from reaching for her. "But I need to understand it. Is that why you brought me here? To quiet your wolf?" "No." The word was rough. Honest. I brought you here because I couldn't stand the thought of you belonging to someone else. The admission hung between them. I don't belong to anyone, Mabel said quietly. No. His eyes darkened. You don't. They stood frozen. The air felt charged, dangerous. Then Atticus stepped back. It's late. You should rest. Mabel didn't move. Can I ask you something? Yes. Your sister mentioned a curse. What did she mean? His expression shuddered immediately. That's not a conversation for tonight. When then? When I'm certain you won't run. I'm not running. Not yet. His voice dropped. But you will. They all do eventually. Before she could respond, he turned and left the room. Mabel stood alone among the silent instruments, her heart racing, wondering what darkness he was hiding. The next 3 days fell into a pattern. Mornings. Evangeline tutored her on castle customs and hierarchy. Afternoons, she was free to explore the grounds. Evenings, dinner with the household. And nights, Atticus would appear in the music room, never speaking much, just listening while she played. It became a ritual neither acknowledged but both anticipated. On the 4th evening, she found Rosalie waiting in her rooms instead of the servant who usually escorted her to dinner. Walk with me? Rosalie asked. They descended to the gardens. Night had fallen, but lanterns lit the pathways. I wanted to warn you, Rosalie said quietly. There's talk. About what? About you. About why you're here. Some think you're the king's mistress. Others think you're a political maneuver. A few believe you're a danger. Mabel stopped walking. A danger? Atticus has been different since you arrived. More present, more engaged. Some of the older council members see that as a threat to the control he's maintained. I don't understand. Rosalie glanced around, then lowered her voice further. The Blackwell line carries a curse. Each generation, the alpha wolf grows stronger, more dominant, harder to control. Atticus's father nearly destroyed half the territory before they found a way to manage it. How? Isolation, distance, absolute control over every aspect of his life. Atticus learned early that connection is dangerous, that caring about someone gives the wolf leverage. Understanding dawned. And now I'm here. Yes, and he's allowing you close. Closer than anyone in years. That terrifies people. Should it terrify me? Rosalie met her eyes. I don't know. I've seen him lose control twice. Both times, people died. But I've also seen him in the music room these past nights, listening to you play. And I've never seen him look so human. They walked in silence for a while. Why are you telling me this? Mabel finally asked. Because I think you deserve to know what you're dealing with. And because... Rosalie smiled slightly. I think you might be exactly what he needs, even if he doesn't know it yet. That night, Atticus didn't come to the music room. Mabel waited an hour, playing absently, before finally giving up. She was halfway back to her rooms when she heard it. A sound like breaking furniture. A low growl that raised every hair on her body. It came from deeper in the castle, the west wing, where she'd been told not to wander. She should return to her rooms, lock the door. Instead, she moved toward the sound. The corridor grew darker. Fewer candles. The growling grew louder. More animal than human. She stopped before a heavy door. Light showed beneath it. The growling came from inside. Slowly, she pushed it open. The room was in chaos. Furniture overturned, claw marks scoring the walls, and in the center, Atticus knelt on the floor, his body shaking. His eyes, when they met hers, were no longer human. They glowed amber. Get out. His voice was barely recognizable. Now, she should run. Every instinct screamed it. Instead, she stepped inside and closed the door. Chapter 4. The Anchor. Atticus's body trembled with barely contained violence. His hands gripped the floor hard enough to crack stone. When he looked at her, something feral and desperate burned in those amber eyes. I told you to leave. The words came out mangled, caught between human and wolf. Mabel's heart hammered against her ribs, but she held her ground. No, you don't understand what you're risking. Then explain it to me. He laughed, the sound jagged and wrong. I'm losing control. My wolf is trying to break free, and when it does, I won't be able to stop it from hurting you. You won't hurt me. You don't know that. His shoulders hunched. No one knows that. Mabel moved closer, slowly, as if approaching a wild animal. What triggered this? Council meeting. Dominic Kingswell appeared, demanded to know why his engagement was dissolved. Atticus's voice roughened. He spoke about you like property, like something he owned, and my wolf. He didn't finish. He didn't need to. I'm not his, Mabel said quietly. I never was. I know. But telling my wolf that is different than it believing it. She knelt a few feet away from him, close enough to see the sweat on his brow, the tension in every muscle. What can I do? Nothing. Just go. Please. No. His eyes snapped to hers. This isn't a game, Mabel. I could kill you. You won't. How can you possibly know that? Because I've seen you. Not the king. Not the alpha. You. And I don't believe you're the monster you think you are. Something in his expression cracked. You should. Instead of responding, Mabel did something instinctive, something she couldn't explain. She began to hum, the melody from the music room, the simple piece she'd played every night. Atticus went rigid. She continued. Soft, steady, letting the tune fill the space between them. His breathing began to slow. The amber glow in his eyes flickered. She kept humming. Minutes passed. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. The tension drained from his shoulders, his hands unclenched. His eyes, still watching her, faded from amber back to dark brown. Finally, the melody ended. Silence settled over them like snow. How did you know that would work? His voice was rough but human again. I didn't. He stared at her. You took a risk. Yes. Why? Mabel considered the question. Why had she stayed? Why had she approached instead of fleeing? The answers swirled in her chest, too complicated to voice. Because you needed someone to, she finally said. Atticus pushed himself up to sitting. His movements were careful, controlled, as if he didn't fully trust his own body yet. That was foolish. Probably. You could have died, but I didn't. He looked around the destroyed room. I do this sometimes. When the pressure builds too high, isolate myself. Let the wolf rage until it exhausts itself. His gaze returned to her. No one has ever interrupted before. Your sister knows? Yes. She and Julian. They keep everyone away. Until now. Until now. He studied her face. You're trembling. She was. Now that the immediate danger had passed, her body was catching up with what she'd done. Delayed reaction. Come here. She hesitated. I won't hurt you. I promise. Slowly, Mabel moved closer. Atticus reached out and took her hand. His palm was warm, rough with calluses. He studied her fingers like they held secrets. Your hands are cold. Fear does that. You were afraid. It wasn't a question. Terrified. And yet you stayed. Yes. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. The touch sent heat racing up her arm. I don't understand you, Mabel Ashford. The feeling is mutual. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, then faded. There are things you should know. About me. About what I am. Then tell me. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of confession. The Blackwell curse isn't just legend. It's real. Each generation, our wolves grow stronger, more dominant. My great-grandfather went mad from it, killed half his pack before they put him down. My grandfather learned to control it through isolation. My father. He stopped. My father tried to fight it. He thought love would be enough. A mate, connection. What happened? She died. In childbirth, with Evangeline. And the grief broke something in him. His wolf consumed him completely. I was 8 when Julian and the council had to end it. Mabel's chest tightened. I'm sorry. I learned early that connection is dangerous, that caring gives the wolf leverage. So I've spent my life maintaining distance, control, never allowing anyone close enough to become a liability. And now, his eyes met hers. Now you're here, and everything I've built feels fragile. Do you want me to leave? Yes, the admission was brutal. And no, I've never wanted anything more than I want you to stay, which is exactly why you should go. Mabel looked at their joined hands, his so much larger than hers, strong enough to crush stone, gentle enough to cradle her palm like something precious. What if you're wrong? She asked quietly. What if connection isn't weakness? What if it's the thing that keeps you human? That's a dangerous belief. Maybe. But I've seen you in the music room. I've watched you listen. You're calmer there than anywhere else in this castle. Because of you. Then use that. Let me help. Atticus pulled his hand back. You don't know what you're offering. Then explain it to me. All of it. No more half-truths. He stood, pacing to the window. The moonlight cast his profile in sharp relief. My wolf recognizes you as something. I don't know what yet. A mate, perhaps. Or something else entirely. But the recognition is absolute, which means it will fight me for you. Try to claim you, mark you, make you ours in every possible way. Heat flooded Mabel's face. And if I wanted that? He turned sharply. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? She stood as well. I'm not a child, Atticus. I understand what you're implying. Understanding and accepting are different things. Then let me decide. Stop making choices for me. They faced each other across the destroyed room. The air between them crackled with something dangerous and inevitable. If I let you close, Atticus said slowly, there's no going back. The wolf won't release you, ever. You'll be bound to me in ways that transcend normal relationships. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. Answer the question. His jaw clenched. When he spoke, each word sounded torn from somewhere deep. Yes, I want you bound to me. I want to know you're mine. Protected. Safe. I want to mark you so thoroughly that every wolf in every territory knows who you belong to. The raw possession in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent liquid heat through her veins. Then do it. Atticus went very still. You don't mean that. I do. Mabel, I've spent my entire life being told what to want, what to accept, what to be. For once, I'm choosing. She moved closer. I choose this. I choose you. You'll regret it. Maybe. But it will be my regret, my choice. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he closed the distance between them. His hand came up to cup her face. His touch was gentle despite the strength behind it. If we do this, he said quietly, I need your complete honesty. Always. About everything. You have it. And if it becomes too much, if you need to leave, you'll let me go. I'll try. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. But I can't promise it will be easy. For either of us. I'm not asking for easy. What are you asking for? Mabel leaned into his touch. A chance. For both of us. Atticus's eyes searched hers, looking for doubt. Hesitation. Finding neither. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was hunger and restraint colliding. His mouth claimed hers with bruising intensity while his hands remained careful on her face. As if he couldn't decide whether to devour or protect. Mabel gasped against his lips, her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Heat exploded through her body, pooling low in her belly. Atticus groaned. The sound vibrated through her. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her head back to deepen the kiss. Then he pulled away, breathing hard. Not here. His voice was raw. Not like this. Mabel's knees felt weak. Then where? Somewhere worthy of you. He swept her into his arms before she could protest. Carried her through the castle like she weighed nothing. Past startled servants. Through corridors that blurred together. He pushed through a door into a room she'd never seen. His chambers. Massive. Dominated by a bed that could sleep four. He set her down carefully. Are you certain? He asked. In answer, Mabel reached for the laces of her gown. Chapter 5. The Claiming. Atticus watched Mabel's fingers work the laces of her gown with a hunger that bordered on violence. Every instinct screamed at him to cross the room, to tear the fabric away, to claim her with the absolute certainty his wolf demanded. But he forced himself to remain still, to let her choose this. Every moment of it. The gown loosened, slipped from her shoulders, pooled at her feet. She stood before him in nothing but her chemise, her skin flushed, her breath coming quick and shallow. Beautiful, he breathed. Mabel's eyes met his. Your turn. He pulled his shirt over his head in one motion, heard her sharp intake of breath as she took in his bare chest. The scars, the evidence of battles fought and survived. Does it frighten you? He asked. No. She stepped closer. Her hand lifted, hesitated, then pressed against his chest, right over his heart. It makes you real. The simple touch ignited something in him. He captured her hand, pressed it harder against his skin. Once we do this, you're mine, completely. Do you understand? Yes. Say it. I'm yours. The words shattered his control. He pulled her against him, his mouth finding hers again. This kiss was different, deeper, more demanding. His hands roamed her body, learning her curves through the thin fabric. Mabel moaned into his mouth. Her fingers dug into his shoulders. Atticus lifted her easily, carrying her to the bed. Laid her down on dark sheets that made her skin glow pale and perfect. He knelt over her, drinking in the sight. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. Then tell me what you want. She looked up at him with eyes gone dark with desire. You. All of you. He lowered himself carefully, bracing his weight on his arms. Pressed kisses to her jaw, her throat, the hollow of her collarbone. Each touch drew small sounds from her that drove him closer to madness. His hand slid beneath her chemise, found bare skin, so soft, so warm. Mabel arched into his touch. Atticus, tell me if I hurt you. You won't. He pulled the chemise over her head, tossed it aside. For a moment, he could only stare. She was perfect. Every curve, every line. Stop looking at me like that, she whispered. Like what? Like you're trying to memorize me. I am. He kissed her again. Slowly this time, savoring. His hands explored her body with reverent attention, learning what made her gasp, what made her tremble. When he finally joined their bodies, her eyes widened. A small sound escaped her. He froze. Did I hurt you? No, it's intense. Do you need me to stop? Don't you dare. A rough laugh escaped him. Then all thought dissolved as he began to move. She met him with equal hunger. Her nails raked his back, her legs wrapped around him, pulling him deeper. The world narrowed to this, to her, to the way she felt beneath him, around him, pulling him under. When release finally crashed through them both, Atticus buried his face in her neck. His teeth grazed her skin. Every instinct demanded he bite. Mark. Claim. But he held back. Barely. He collapsed beside her, pulling her against his chest. Their breathing slowly steadied. That was. Mabel's voice was soft, dazed. Yes. She turned in his arms, meeting his eyes. Why didn't you mark me? You noticed. I felt you hold back. Atticus brushed hair from her face. Marking you is permanent. Irreversible. I wanted you to be certain. I am certain. You say that now, but in the morning, I'll still be certain. She pressed her palm to his chest again, over his racing heart. Mark me, Atticus. Make it real. He studied her face, searching for doubt, finding only determination. It will hurt. I don't care. You'll carry my mark for life. Every wolf who sees you will know you're claimed. Good. Something in her fierce certainty undid him. He rolled her beneath him again, positioned himself over the curve where her neck met her shoulder. Last chance, he murmured against her skin. Do it. His teeth sank into her flesh. Mabel cried out, not in pain, in something else entirely. Her body arched against him, her fingers dug into his shoulders. Atticus felt the bond snap into place, felt it settle into his bones with absolute certainty. Mine. Forever. Unbreakable. When he pulled back, his mark stood vivid against her pale skin. Perfect. Permanent. It's done, he said roughly. You're mine now. Mabel touched the mark gently, winced, then smiled. And you're mine. Yes. She pulled him down for a kiss. Soft this time. Sweet. They lay tangled together as the candles burned low. Atticus traced patterns on her skin, still unable to quite believe she was real. That she'd chosen this. Chosen him. What happens now? Mabel asked sleepily. Now everyone will know. The mark announces it. You're under my protection, my responsibility. Your mate. If you want that term. Do you? He was quiet for a moment. I've spent years avoiding this exact situation, believing I was too dangerous, too broken, but with you. He pressed his lips to her marked shoulder. Yes, I want that term. She smiled against his chest. Good. They drifted toward sleep. But before Mabel's breathing evened out completely, she whispered, Atticus? Yes? Thank you. For giving me a choice. He held her tighter. Always. Morning came too quickly. Mabel woke wrapped in warmth and strength. Atticus's arm draped over her waist, his breath steady against her neck. The mark on her shoulder throbbed gently, a constant reminder of what they'd done. She should feel regret, uncertainty. Instead, she felt settled, as if something inside her had finally found its proper place. Atticus stirred behind her. His arm tightened. Good morning, she whispered. Is it? His voice was rough with sleep. Or are you having second thoughts? No second thoughts. He turned her to face him. His eyes searched hers. The mark looks good on you. Heat flooded her cheeks. Does it hurt when you mark someone? The act itself? No. But seeing my mark on you. He traced the edges of it with gentle fingers. It satisfies something primitive. You're Wolf. Yes. It's been quiet since last night. Content. Because of this? Because of you. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. We should dress. There will be questions. Will they be angry? The council? Some will. Others will be relieved. I've been unmarked for years. It made certain alliances difficult. He sat up, the sheets pooling at his waist. But they won't challenge it. Not directly. Mabel sat up as well, suddenly aware of her nakedness in daylight. She reached for the sheet. Atticus caught her hand. Don't. I want to look at you. It's different in daylight. Better. His eyes traced over her body with undisguised appreciation. Everything about you is better. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. They both froze. Your Majesty? Evangeline's voice carried through the wood. We need to speak. Now. Atticus's expression darkened. One moment. He rose, pulling on trousers and a shirt with economical movements. Mabel scrambled for her discarded chemise. Atticus opened the door a crack. What is it? Dominic Kingswell has returned, with reinforcements. He's demanding an audience. Atticus went very still. How many? 20 men. Armed. They're in the main hall. I'll be down shortly. Atticus. Evangeline's voice dropped. He knows. About Mabel. Someone must have told him. His hands clenched into fists. I'll handle it. He closed the door. Turned to find Mabel standing in the middle of the room, her chemise clutched to her chest. I should go with you, she said. Absolutely not. He came because of me. You should stay here, where it's safe. He crossed to her, cupping her face. Let me handle Dominic. What are you going to do? His smile was sharp. Remind him who he's dealing with. The main hall was tense with barely suppressed violence. Dominic stood at the center, flanked by armed men. His expression was carefully controlled, but fury burned in his eyes. He turned when Atticus entered. His gaze swept over the Alpha King, then stopped, fixed on something. Atticus touched his collar absently, realized what Dominic had seen. A mark, mirror to the one on Mabel's shoulder. Faint but visible at his own neck. Mate marks went both ways. Dominic's face went white, then red. You marked her. I claimed my mate. Yes, she was mine. She was never yours. Atticus's voice dropped to something dangerous. And now she's marked, mated, under my protection. If you have a problem with that, state it clearly. Dominic's jaw clenched. You had no right. I had every right. She came to me willingly. Chose me freely. Your engagement was dissolved weeks ago because you manipulated her, offered her things she couldn't refuse. I offered her freedom, something you never did. The accusation hung in the air. Several of Dominic's men shifted uncomfortably. This isn't over, Dominic said quietly. Yes, it is. Atticus moved closer, letting his presence dominate the space. Mabel Ashford is my mate, my queen. If you challenge that, you challenge me directly. Is that what you want? Silence. Dominic's men looked at each other. No one wanted to challenge an alpha king. I want compensation, Dominic finally said. For the broken engagement. For the alliance your actions destroyed. Denied. You can't. I can. And I am. You'll receive nothing. And if you ever speak of Mabel again, if you even think her name, I'll consider it a personal insult. Atticus's eyes flashed amber. Do we understand each other? Dominic stared at him. Outmatched, and he knew it. Perfectly, he said through clenched teeth. Then leave my territory. Now, before my wolf decides your presence is a threat. It wasn't an idle warning. Everyone in the room could feel it. The barely leashed violence rolling off the Alpha King. Dominic turned sharply, gestured to his men. They filed out without another word. When the doors closed behind them, Atticus released a breath. Julian appeared at his elbow. That went better than expected. He'll be back. Probably, but not today. The older man studied him. You're marked. I am. Congratulations, I think. Atticus's lips twitched. Thank you, I think. Evangeline joined them. How is she? Strong. Certain. More than I deserve. Probably. His sister smiled. When do we make the formal announcement? Tonight. At dinner. Let the household know first. The territories can hear tomorrow. They'll have questions. They always do. Evangeline's expression softened. She's good for you, Atticus. I've never seen you this calm. He thought of Mabel, waiting in his chambers. Of the mark on her shoulder and the matching one on his neck. Of the way his wolf had finally quieted. Yes, he said quietly. She is. Chapter 6. The Queen. The announcement spread through the castle like wildfire. By evening, everyone knew. The Alpha King had taken a mate. A nobody from a minor noble house. Marked her. Claimed her. Made her queen before anyone could object. Mabel stood in her chambers, now relocated to the queen's suite adjacent to Atticus's, while Evangeline supervised servants unpacking her belongings. They'll be watching you tonight, Evangeline said. Looking for weakness. Doubt. Any sign you're not worthy of the position. I'm not, though. Mabel's voice was quiet. Worthy, I mean. I have no training. No experience. I don't know how to be a queen. Neither did I when I became the king's sister. Evangeline moved to stand beside her. But you learn, and you have something more valuable than training. What? Him, Atticus. He's never allowed anyone this close. The fact that he chose you, marked you. She touched Mabel's shoulder gently, near the mark. That speaks louder than any bloodline. A knock interrupted them. Rosalie entered, carrying an ornate gown in deep sapphire blue. From the king, she said, laying it across the bed. He had it commissioned for you. Mabel stared at the dress. It was beautiful, elegant without being ostentatious. The fabric alone must have cost more than her family's entire wardrobe. He has good taste, Evangeline observed. He shouldn't be spending this on me. You're his queen. Every penny spent on you is an investment in the kingdom's image. Evangeline picked up the gown. Now let's get you dressed. You have a room full of wolves to impress. The dining hall fell silent when Mabel entered. She'd been dressed carefully. The sapphire gown fit perfectly, emphasizing her figure without being scandalous. Her hair had been arranged in an intricate style that left her marked shoulder partially visible. Diamonds borrowed from the royal collection glittered at her throat and ears. She looked every inch a queen, but she felt like an imposter. Atticus stood at the head of the table. His eyes found her immediately. Something in his expression shifted. Not just appreciation. Something deeper. Pride. He crossed to her, offering his arm. You're breathtaking. I feel like a fraud. You're not. He led her to the table, to the seat beside his. The queen's seat. You belong here. They sat together. The room remained quiet. Waiting, Atticus stood, his presence commanding immediate attention. Tonight we celebrate, he announced. I've found my mate. Mabel Ashford is now Mabel Blackwell. Your queen. Anyone who challenges this challenges me directly. No one spoke. Then Julian stood, raised his glass. To the queen. May her reign be long and prosperous. To the queen, the room echoed. Mabel felt her cheeks burn. But she lifted her own glass, meeting eyes around the table. Some were warm, welcoming. Others were calculating, suspicious. But none were openly hostile. It was a start. Dinner progressed with careful conversation. Mabel found herself answering questions about her family, her interests, her plans for her new role. She had no plans, but she improvised, spoke of wanting to learn, to serve the people, to support Atticus in whatever way he needed. It sounded hollow to her ears. But others seemed satisfied. Midway through the meal, an older woman across the table leaned forward. Tell me, dear, how did you capture the king's attention? He's been resistant to marriage for so long. The question was polite. The undertone was not. Mabel met her gaze steadily. I didn't capture anything. We found each other. How romantic. The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. And the mark? Was that immediate? Or did you wait? Atticus's hand found Mabel's beneath the table. A warning squeeze. Our timeline is our own, Mabel said carefully. But yes, the mark is permanent. I'm honored to carry it. As you should be. The woman leaned back. Welcome to the family, dear. It didn't feel welcoming. After dinner, Atticus pulled her aside. They stood in a quiet corridor while the household dispersed. You did well, he said. I was terrified. You didn't show it. He brushed a thumb across her cheek. But you should know, not everyone will accept you easily. There will be challenges. From who? Old families who wanted their daughters considered. Council members who fear change. Anyone who benefited from my isolation. What do I do? Stand your ground. Remember who you are. And know that I'm with you. Always. Mabel leaned into his touch. This is harder than I expected. I know. But you're stronger than you realize. How can you be certain? Because you walked into that bathing chamber, saw me, and stayed. Because you calmed my wolf when no one else could. Because you chose this life knowing exactly what it meant. His voice dropped. You're the strongest person I've ever met, Mabel. Even if you don't see it yet. Tears pricked her eyes. I don't want to disappoint you. You couldn't. Not ever. He kissed her then, soft and sweet. A promise against her lips. When they parted, Evangeline appeared around the corner. Sorry to interrupt, she said. But we have a situation. Atticus's expression hardened immediately. What kind? Dominic Kingswell filed a formal complaint with the Territorial Council. Claims you coerced Mabel. That the mark isn't legitimate. Fury flashed across Atticus's face. That's absurd. I know, but it requires a response. A formal one. What does that mean? Mabel asked. Evangeline looked uncomfortable. It means you'll have to appear before the council. Answer questions. Prove the bond is genuine. How do I prove that? By demonstrating the connection. The mark is evidence, but they'll want more. They'll ask about the night you were claimed. About your feelings. Your choices. Evangeline's gaze was sympathetic. It won't be pleasant. Mabel felt sick. They want me to share intimate details? Yes. Atticus stepped between them. No. I won't subject her to that. You may not have a choice. If Dominic pushes this, the council has to investigate. It's protocol. Then change the protocol. I can't. And neither can you. Not without starting a war between territories. Silence fell. Atticus's hands clenched into fists. His wolf clearly wanted to fight, to protect, to destroy anyone who threatened his mate. But he was also a king. And kings had responsibilities beyond personal desire. When? He finally asked. 3 days. That's when the council convenes. He nodded sharply. Fine, but I'm there with her. Every moment. That might not be allowed. I don't care. She's mine, my mate, my queen. If they want to question her, they do it with me present. Non-negotiable. Evangeline sighed. I'll inform them. After she left, Atticus turned to Mabel. His expression was torn between rage and helplessness. I'm sorry, he said. This is my fault. I should have handled Dominic differently. You didn't do anything wrong. I took you from him, marked you, made you a target. I chose this. Remember? That doesn't make it easier to watch you suffer for it. Mabel took his hands. Then help me prepare. Tell me what to expect. How to answer. We'll face this together. He searched her eyes. You're not angry? At you? No. At Dominic for making this difficult? Yes, but we'll handle it. Atticus pulled her against his chest, held her like she might disappear. I don't deserve you, he murmured into her hair. Too late. You're stuck with me. A rough laugh escaped him. Good. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Evangeline coached Mabel on council protocols. Julian explained territorial law. Atticus stayed close, his presence a constant comfort. But at night, alone in their shared chambers, his control cracked. I can't stand this, he said the evening before the hearing. Knowing they'll question you, judge you, tear apart something sacred. Mabel sat beside him on the bed. Then we make sure they can't find anything to criticize. We tell the truth, simply, clearly, without shame. You're not ashamed of being with you? Never. He turned to her. Even if this ruins your reputation, makes you a scandal, my reputation was ruined the moment I walked away from Dominic. This is just the consequence. She cupped his face. And I'd make the same choice again. Every time. Atticus kissed her with desperate intensity, as if trying to memorize the taste of her, the feel of her. They made love slowly that night, every touch deliberate, every kiss weighted with meaning. Afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Atticus traced the mark on her shoulder. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said quietly, know that you're mine, permanently, irrevocably. No council can change that. Mabel pressed closer. And you're mine. Yes. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, holding tight against whatever morning would bring. Chapter 7. The Trial. The council chamber was designed to intimidate. High ceilings, stone walls carved with the history of territorial law, a semicircular table where 12 council members sat in judgment, and in the center, 2 chairs, isolated, exposed. Mabel sat in one, Atticus in the other. He'd fought to be beside her. The council had reluctantly agreed. Around them, witnesses and observers filled the gallery. Evangeline sat in the front row, Julian beside her, Rosalie further back, and in the corner, looking smug, Dominic Kingswell. The head counselor, an older man named Theodore Sinclair, cleared his throat. We are here to examine the legitimacy of the mate bond between Alpha King Atticus Blackwell and Mabel Ashford, now Blackwell. This inquiry was prompted by formal complaint alleging coercion and improper claiming. His gaze swept over Mabel. Miss Blackwell, you understand the seriousness of these proceedings? Yes, sir. Good. Then let us begin. He shuffled papers. Please describe, in your own words, how you came to be claimed by the Alpha King. Mabel took a breath. I attended a gathering at Thornhill Manor. During the evening, I became lost and accidentally entered his private chamber. Accidentally? Yes. I was upset and seeking quiet. I didn't know whose room it was. Why were you upset? She glanced at Dominic. I'd discovered my fiancé's infidelity. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Continue. I entered the room. The Alpha King was there. We spoke briefly. I left. And then? The next day, I was summoned. Offered protection and a place in his household. Protection from what? From a marriage I no longer wanted. From a family that saw me as property rather than a person. Theodore's expression remained neutral. And you accepted this offer? Yes. Why? Mabel chose her words carefully. Because for the first time, someone gave me a choice. The Alpha King offered freedom, independence, a chance to decide my own path, and in exchange, my company, my presence when requested. Nothing more was demanded, but something more developed. Yes, explain. Heat flooded her cheeks. We spent time together, talked, learned about each other, and we connected. Physically, Atticus's hand tightened on the armrest. Mabel touched it lightly, calming. Yes, she said steadily. Physically, emotionally, in every way that matters. Was this physical connection coerced in any way? No. Pressured? No. Then describe the circumstances of your claiming. This was it, the moment they'd prepared for. Mabel met Theodore's eyes. The Alpha King asked my permission, multiple times, made certain I understood what marking meant, gave me opportunities to refuse. I chose to accept. Why? Because I wanted to be his, and I wanted him to be mine. The simple honesty seemed to surprise the council. You understand that mate bonds are permanent? Another counselor asked. A woman named Lydia Fitzgerald. Yes. Irrevocable? Yes. And you entered this bond willingly, with full knowledge of its implications? I did. Lydia studied her. What about love, Miss Blackwell? Did you love the king when you accepted his mark? Mabel hesitated. Love was complicated, new, still forming, but one thing she knew with certainty. I loved what he offered me. Freedom, choice, respect. And I was drawn to him in ways I couldn't explain. She glanced at Atticus, found him watching her with naked intensity. Am drawn to him, more every day. That's not an answer, Lydia pressed. It's the only answer I have. Love isn't instantaneous. It grows. But the foundation, the connection, that was immediate, undeniable, and worth everything. Silence fell over the chamber. Then Theodore turned to Atticus. Your Majesty, do you have anything to add? Atticus stood. His presence filled the room. Yes, I claim Mabel Blackwell as my true mate, chosen freely, marked with her full consent. Anyone who challenges this challenges me directly, and I will defend my mate, with my life if necessary. The words carried absolute authority. No room for argument. Theodore looked between them. The council will deliberate. You're dismissed. They waited in an antechamber. Atticus paced like a caged wolf. Mabel sat in a chair, her hands folded to keep them from shaking. Evangeline brought tea. You did well. It didn't feel like enough. It was. Trust me. An hour passed. Then another. Finally, a servant appeared. They're ready. Back in the council chamber, Theodore stood. After careful deliberation, this council finds no evidence of coercion or improper claiming. The mate bond between Alpha King Atticus Blackwell and Queen Mabel Blackwell is recognized as legitimate and binding. Relief crashed through Mabel so forcefully she almost collapsed. Theodore continued. However, given the unusual circumstances, we recommend a public ceremony, a formal bonding before the territories, to solidify the union and eliminate any remaining doubt. Atticus's expression darkened. That's not necessary. Perhaps not legally, but politically, it would help. Theodore's gaze was steady. Think of it as an investment in your queen's reputation. Silence. Then Atticus nodded curtly. Fine. We'll do the ceremony. Excellent. We'll begin preparations immediately. The council filed out. Observers dispersed. Dominic left without a backward glance, his expression thunderous. When they were finally alone, Atticus pulled Mabel into his arms. It's over, he said against her hair. You're safe. We're safe, she corrected. He pulled back to look at her. I'm proud of you. How you handled them. The truth in your words. I meant every word. I know. He kissed her forehead. Now we have a ceremony to plan. Do you really want to do this? The public bonding? No. But Theodore was right. It will help. Give you legitimacy. Show the territories that our bond is strong. And is it? Mabel asked quietly. Strong? Atticus cupped her face. Mabel, you're the only person who's ever calmed my wolf. The only one I trust completely. The only one I've marked in my entire life. Our bond isn't just strong, it's everything. Tears pricked her eyes. I'm falling in love with you. Good. His voice roughened. Because I'm already there. He kissed her then. Deep and slow and full of promise. And somewhere in Mabel's chest, something settled. Found its home. She'd chosen this man, this life, this love. And she would choose it again. Every single day. Epilogue. 6 months later. The public bonding ceremony had been beautiful. Thousands attended. Mabel wore a gown of silver that caught the light like moonlight. Atticus stood beside her in black and blue, his hand never leaving hers. They'd exchanged vows before the assembled territories, renewed their marks in public view, sealed their bond with a kiss that made the crowd erupt in cheers. Now, months later, Mabel stood on the balcony of their chambers, looking out over the estate she'd come to call home, arms wrapped around her from behind. Atticus's chin rested on her shoulder. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That 6 months ago, I was terrified, lost, trapped. And now?" She turned in his arms, met his eyes. "Now I'm exactly where I belong." He smiled, the rare, genuine smile he reserved only for her. "As am I. Your wolf is quiet today. It's been quiet since we bonded publicly." As if it needed the territories to acknowledge what it already knew. "And what's that?" "That you're mine, and I'm yours. Completely. Forever." Mabel stretched up to kiss him. "Forever sounds perfect." "It does." He deepened the kiss, then pulled back with a mischievous look. "Though I should warn you, Evangeline is planning a birthday celebration for me next month. It will be insufferable. Then we'll suffer together. Deal." They stood wrapped in each other as the sun set. Two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, who'd chosen love over safety, connection over control, and who would keep choosing it every single day, for the rest of their lives. If you love stories where powerful men fall in the quietest, most dangerous ways, where one moment changes everything, then you're exactly where you should be. Welcome to Ariel Romance Library.